Hey Titans, it's Mr. Spilker here. I apologize for not being with you today. I'm at home. The babysitter is sick, so that means I had to stay home to take care of my two little ones. I thought about bringing them to class, but I don't think that'd be a great solution. A 5-year-old and a almost 2-year-old probably wouldn't do well in algebra class. I also thought about leaving them home alone, but that's illegal. So instead of breaking the law, I'm going to teach via YouTube video today. So as I am not there physically, I am there in spirit with you, and I'm also going to be there in voice, leading you through today's lesson. So let's go ahead and jump into our day today. Our Win the Day message is, we don't get burned out because of what we do. We get burned out because we forget why we do it. Purpose keeps you fresh. I'm sitting here at my desk, and I started flipping through the sheets that you guys filled out for me at the beginning of the year. These sheets were titled, if I pull them out right here, they were titled Me Pages. And I flipped to the back of these, and I asked you guys to make a goal. And when I look at that goal on the back, I have one student in front of me right now that says, I want to get all A's. I have another student that says, I plan to learn math. I have another student that says, my goal for Algebra 1 is to get good grades and not fail. I have another student here that says, study for tests and quizzes. I have another student here that says, my goal in algebra is to pay attention to the information given so that I can achieve my goal in my future career. I have another student that says, I want to get an A+ for the whole year. My point here is this, ladies and gentlemen. At this time of year, some people tend to get burned out. And the reason they get burned out is not because they're so tired. It's because they have forgotten their purpose. So think back to that commitment that you made at the beginning of the school year. Think about how you felt at the beginning of the school year and trying to renew your purpose. Purpose keeps you fresh. So I ask you Titans today to remember your why and finish this semester strong. Our agenda for today is to do an opener, and then after doing an opener, we're going to go ahead and do a homework check. Then we're going to look at, talk about quiz retakes, then we're going to do lesson 11.5, and then we'll talk about 11.5 practice. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the opener. Here for the opener, you have 4 questions. Their review. Number 1, name the asymptotes. Number 2, simplify it and state the restrictions. Keep in mind on number 2, you're going to need to go ahead and factor both the top and bottom. Number 3, divide. Remember, whenever we divide, we copy, dot, flip. And number 4, you add. Make sure when you add, you have a common denominator. So those are the hints for your opener. We will go ahead and pause the video right now, and I will give you a few minutes here to go ahead and complete your opener. The next slide will be the solutions. So we'll go ahead and pause the video now, and then when everybody's had a fair amount of time to work on this, we'll go ahead and take a look at the answers. So go ahead and pause it now. All right, here's the answers to the opener. Number 1, x equals 4 and y equals 6. Number 2 should be a plus 2 over a. And the restrictions are a cannot equal 0. Number 3, the final answer should be x plus 3 over x. And number 4 should be 11 over 2r. These are the solutions to your opener. Keep in mind, 4 questions very similar to this will be on your chapter test, which is going to take place on Friday. The next stop today is the homework check. So go ahead and get out your 11.4 worksheets. These were most of you, they were yellow worksheets that were handed out on Friday. I asked that you had numbers 1 through 12 fully completed. 13 through 16, I asked that you gave those an attempt. We'll go ahead and look at these solutions here. Make sure you learn from your mistakes. If you don't understand a few questions, make sure you ask questions on the ones that you don't understand. You can work with your partner on that. You can also get some help throughout the classroom. So let's go ahead and pull those worksheets out and grade them over. The solutions are shown here. So go ahead and take a look at 1 through 16. We will pause the video now to go ahead and give everybody a chance to check their answers and discuss the ones they missed with their partner. So go ahead and check them over. All right, our next stop today is just a quick reminder. Retakes are still available this week for the 11.1, 11.3 quiz. So if you had trouble on that assessment, retakes are still available. There's going to be a test on Friday. Test on Friday over Chapter 11. The pre-test is available online. I posted that yesterday. So take a look at that. Test test, the pretest that's online. And then keep in mind, Wednesday and Thursday of this week are block scheduling. We have NISA Science coming up. So while the juniors are taking NISA Science, we will be on a block schedule. So I'm going to see the odd class periods on Wednesday and the evens on Thursday. The Wednesday, Thursday days are going to be review for the test. So I want to remind you that you're only going to get 1 day of in-class review for the test. Keep in mind that 1 day will be a long block period, but each student's only going to get 1 day of review. So that's going to mean that you're going to really need to make sure that you spend some time on your own looking over material from Chapter 11, and especially using that online pretest. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this takes us to our next portion of our class period today, and that is going to be 11.5 note-taking. So we did not do a teaching video at home over 11.5. We're going to do traditional teaching in class. So if you'd go ahead and get out your 11.5 notes, you're going to need to put the heading on there, 11.5, Solving Rational Equations. 11.5, Solving Rational Equations. The objective for today is for you to be able to leave this classroom with the ability to solve rational equations by using what we call the common denominator method. You don't need to write down the objective. I just want you to understand what we're going to be attempting to accomplish. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at an example problem. Once again, this is not one for you to write down. This is one just kind of a teaser question. It's one that I want you to pay attention to, and we'll go through it, and it's going to help you understand what we're doing for today. Excuse me. The question says, Max and his younger brother Carl are earning extra money by delivering papers. They're what we call paper boys. Max can deliver all of the papers on the route in 80 minutes when he works all by himself. Carl, however, when he delivers them, he does it in 2 hours. So as you can see, Max works a little bit quicker. Max does it in 80 minutes, Carl does it in 2 hours, and that's the times that they work alone. Now, the question here is, if Max and Carl work together, so if Max and Carl work together, how many minutes will it take them to finish the job? Well, to figure this out, we're going to go ahead and set up a rational equation. The fractional part of the job plus the fractional part of the job is going to equal the completed job. So we look at the fraction part that Max completed, which is 1/80th. That means for every 1/80th times the amount of time it takes for them to work together, that's the rate at which Max is working. And then Carl works at a rate of 1/120th. 120 comes from 2 hours. 2 hours, 2 times 60 is 120. So you take the fractional part of Max and the fractional part of Carl, and you add them together, and that equals the one whole completed job. So to solve this equation here, we're going to use what we call the common denominator method. The common denominator method says you multiply each term by the common denominator. So what number does 80 and 120 both go into? We got to think, what can 120 and 80 both go into? And the answer to that is 240. So I'm going to multiply this entire equation by 240. So that is going to be 3t plus 2t is equal to 240. If you're wondering where I got the 3t, well, what's 240 divided by 80? And if you're wondering where I got the 2t, well, what's 240 divided by 120? And then 1 times 240 is 240. So that would leave us with 5t is equal to 240. So then my next step would be to solve that equation by dividing both sides by 5. And if you pull out your calculator and do 240 divided by 5, you'll find out that the answer is 48. So if they work together, how long would it take? 48 minutes. Once again, that's the application of solving a rational equation. So we'll go ahead and jump into the steps here. Here's the steps for solving a rational equation. And you'll see that we put most of these in action on that last problem. Step 1, determine the least common denominator of all the fractions in the equation. So you need to look at all of the fractions that are present in your equation and determine what the least common denominator is. Then eliminate the fractions by multiplying all terms by the LCD. That's the key step of the day. You get rid of the fractions by multiplying all terms by the least common denominator. Then you simplify the terms. Then you solve the remaining equation. And then you check your answer to make sure that that solution does not make the fraction undefined. So we're going to go ahead and pause the video right now, and I want you to copy down these steps into your notes. All right, now that you have the steps down, let's go ahead and apply them to these examples. All right, example number 1, put this down in your notes. Example number 1 says x over 3 plus 2x over 4 is equal to 5. So go ahead and write that down. The first thing we're going to do here on number 1 is identify the LCD. So what is the common denominator? Well, my denominators are 3, 4, and then what would be the denominator of 5? Yep, you guessed it, 1. So what is the common denominator of 3, 4, and 1? That number would be, guess what? 12. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply each term by 12. That was the step. Multiply through by the LCD. Now what is 12 divided by 3? Yep, 4x. What is 12 divided by 4? Well, these here, the 12 and the 4, are going to cancel to be a 3. So then 2x times 3 would be, guess what? 6x. And then 5 times 12 on the right side there would be 60. So as you saw in the first fraction, I was able to cross out the 12 and the 3 to become a 4. The 4 and the 12 became a 3, which 3 times 2x is 6x. And then the 5 times 12 is just 5 times 12, which is 60. So now we'd have 10x equals 60. So then we divide by 10. And x equals 6. So that's my answer to number 1. X is equal to 6. Now you always want to make sure that when you take that number that you got for x, if you were to plug it in, you got to make sure it doesn't leave you with any undefined fractions. And if you look back, it does not. If you plug in 6, you're not going to run into any undefined fractions. So 6 is your solution to number 1. So make sure you have that down in your notes. I'm going to go ahead and erase that. So if I can go ahead and grab my eraser here, I'm going to get rid of that information, and we're going to jump to number 2. Number 2, what is my L? Oop, I got to switch off my eraser here. It's probably the first mistake I've made this year. Now let's go to the LCD here. What's my LCD going to be? Well, our LCD comes from our denominators. Our denominators are x, 1, and 3x. So what would be the common denominator? Yep, you guessed it, 3x. So that means I'm going to multiply each term by 3x. Every term gets multiplied by 3x, by 3x, by 3x. And I know that's a little bit messy with my handwriting there, but those are 3's. So in the first fraction, the x's cancel. So I'm left with 4 times 3, which is 12. 7 times 3x would be 21x. And then in the last fraction, the 3x's cancel, and I'm left with just 2. So now I must solve this equation. So to solve this equation, I'm going to go ahead and take the 12 and move it over, so it becomes a negative 12. So now I'm left with 21x is equal to 2 minus 12, which is negative 10. Then you divide both by 21, and x is equal to a negative 10 21sts. So that would be my final answer there, is negative 10 21sts. So that's example 2. Make sure you have that down into your notes. We'll move on to example 3 now. All right, we'll look at example 3. Example 3, we've got to identify the least common denominator. And the least common denominator on number 3, if we look at our denominators, we got x, and 2x squared. So my least common denominator will be 2x squared. So I multiply the first equation by 2x squared, the second part by 2x squared, and the third part by 2x squared. So they all get multiplied by 2x squared. In the first fraction, if we simplify that, the x would cancel out with 1x. So that's going to make it just be 2x. So 1 times 2x is 2x. 2x squared and 2x squared canceled, so you're left with just 5. And then the x and the x squared would cancel to be x, so 8 times 2x would be 16x. So I have 2x minus 5 equals 16x. So I'm going to go ahead and move the 2x over. So I get that over here. It becomes a negative 2x. So that leaves me with negative 5 is equal to 14x. Then I divide by 14. And negative 5/14 is my answer. That's example number 3. Let's go ahead and make sure you have that down in your notes. All right, we'll continue on with example 4. Once again, if I'm going too fast any time, just please ask your substitute to go ahead and pause, rewind it. That's the great thing about this video is we can pause it, we can rewind it. I'll put this on the class website, so if some of you guys need help falling asleep tonight, just go ahead and go to the website and push play, and you can listen to my sweet voice put you to sleep. Hopefully it's not putting you to sleep right now. I did install the camera up on the smart board, so I am watching you guys at home right now. If you look up on the smart board projector there, you'll see the camera that is recording. So let's jump into number 4. Number 4 says we must check for extraneous solutions. All right. So if we look at number 4 here, the LCD would be y plus 5. So number 4, another good one to write down here. The LCD would be y plus 5. So if I go through and I multiply each term by y plus 5, by y plus 5, by y plus 5, if we look at this, the y plus 5s cancel, and I'm left with just y. The y plus 5s cancel, and I'm left with just 5. And then here, 3 times y plus 5, well, nothing cancels, so I just got to multiply that, and I would get 3y plus 15. Now, when I solve this equation, I move the 3y over, so it becomes a negative 3y, which would be a negative 2y. And then I move the 5 over, and it becomes a negative 5, so I get 10. I divide both sides by negative 2, and y is equal to a negative 5. All right, so I multiplied everything through by the LCD, then I solved that equation, and the key part I need you to understand here is that my answer was y equals negative 5. So now if you pay attention here on number 4, if you pay attention to number 4 here, look what negative 5 would do. Negative 5 would make your denominators become 0. So therefore, negative 5 is what we call an extraneous solution. It's a solution that when we solve it is correct, but when we check it, it doesn't work because we cannot have undefined values. All right. So that's your teaching. That's your teaching for 11.5. Hopefully you have those examples down. Once again, there's a couple more examples in your textbook. So let's go ahead now and move on to some in-class assignments. So let's go ahead and get your piece of paper out here, and let's look at what we're going to do for an assignment. All right, the assignment you have is page 556, 9 through 11, 14, 15. Then I want you to try numbers 20 through 23, and then 33, 34, 38, 39. So kind of a confusing assignment there. Make sure you write that down. Get your textbooks out, and go ahead and begin work on this. Keep in mind that your test is on Friday. The pre-test is online. Due to block scheduling, there will be only one long period of review, so make sure you're ready to go on either Wednesday or Thursday, whichever day I see you. So, once again, I apologize for not being there. Know that I do want to be there. I try to take pride in being at class and giving you guys my best effort, so I apologize for not being there. I look forward to being back with you guys tomorrow on Wednesday. If you need anything, you guys know my email, jspilker@paplv.com. or .org, excuse me. Just shoot me an email, and I'll try to help you any way I can. So, thanks for listening, guys. Let's use the rest of our class period to work on this assignment.